I will just pin this one just to start. Okay, so welcome everyone. So today we are looking at why is it so important to make decision, and especially the one we are having a tendency to, no, I don't want to choose either this or this. It's too hard. And who has been there in their life? I've been there 1,000 times where we are facing a current situation, and sometimes it's like, I prefer to wait and see, and I don't want to choose. But what I learned in my life is, especially a year ago, I was really going through a hard time. I was having financial anxiety. I was living in Australia, and one day was too much. I had to face my situation. I had to find a way to change something. I was not making money yet from my new business. I was having a high living cost from being in Australia. I was paying to my school to remain in Australia and all those expenses. And one day I took my courage between my two hands and I dated my finances. I went through my numbers and I look at them and I had to face the reality. What can I change to not feel anxious about money anymore, to being able to kind of live again, being able to move forward? And there was not a lot of things I could change because I was already not having a coffee outside. I was not spending any money on restaurants or clothes or any fancy stuff. I was really already, living at the minimum. Yeah, cost minimum, bare cost minimum. I'm not sure in which existence. But I had to change something because I was miserable. I couldn't continue to live like that. It was even hard to look at myself in the mirror. I really hated myself at that moment. I was like, why am I going through that again? Why, what for? So that day I decided, okay, I'm going to make a decision. I had the choice between getting the only big expense I had, which was my rent, and figure out where I'm going to live next, or going for a new job and paying the bills and putting my dream on the side. And at that moment, I was like, ooh, I don't really want to go back to corporate. I could still feel sick from my burnout. And I was like, no, I don't want to give up on my dream. And a few days earlier, I met a girl who at a networking event, and she told me like, "Oh yeah, I'm doing house sitting. I'm not spending any money on rent," and she was happy about it. And I hadn't thought about that when I was like looking at my expenses, saying like, maybe this is the solution. I could remain in Australia, still building my business, and not paying rent. Oh, wow. So that day, made a decision. That day, I decided I am going to let go of my apartment. It was tough. I cry a lot, believe me. I was like, I don't know where I'm going to live in 3 weeks from now. But I made the decision that I am going to the next chapter. I am going to do something to move forward. I am going to bet on myself, on my dream. And I decided at that moment to leave my apartment and then to figure out the rest after. So that day was Sunday, 26th of June last year. I made a decision, tough decision, but I couldn't stay any longer looking, feeling miserable, having this anxiety. I had to change something. And from that moment, a lot of things started to shift in my life. I found a few days later a new home for a month and a half in Australia, in Melbourne, for free, doing these house sitting things.
What is that? When people are away, you stay in the house. Is that it?
Yes, exactly. So house sitting is you take care of the pet or just the house, but usually there is a pet like a
It's
cat.
okay. I just wanted to be sure.
Yeah. And then you stay for free. And I didn't know this concept. But a few days earlier, this person was in my way telling me about house sitting, and it gave me a new option, a new opportunity on how I can keep going toward the life I want, I desire, and making it possible. So this story was really about how a single decision can really have a big impact on your life. Because from that moment, it was a year ago, my whole life shifted. I feel much better. I'm still building my dream. I've been traveling all around the world in my suitcase, and a lot of good things happen. If I didn't have, if I didn't made a decision at that time, maybe I would have felt worse and worse. Maybe I would have lose more money paying my rent for months, and maybe I would have just give up and went back on a corporate job 3 months later. I don't know. I can't imagine the scenario, but I know that that decision has shifted the rest of my life, the last year, the last 12 months, and enable me to to breathe again, enable me to remove a weight from my shoulder, enable me to live again, to feel alive again, and move forward, and to afford a coffee outside. So this is what I encourage you when you are facing a situation, when you know you have to make a decision. Don't wait forever before to make this decision, because I know sometimes, me included, I've been waiting for, oh, life will figure out. Yes, someone may take the decision for me. Maybe my boyfriend will decide to leave, so I don't need to break up with him. Whatever. Sometimes it's better not to wait. It's better to act on it, to make a decision. It doesn't mean you have to leave. It doesn't mean you have to quit everything. It just means you have to make one decision to literally, little by little, shifting and moving forward. It's by creating this movement in your life that you are going closer to the life you want to live. So now, what has been my process? Do you see how I've been through a few steps during my story? The first step is being truly honest with yourself. What is my current situation? If I ask myself today, what is the problem I am facing? So this is step number one. So I encourage you, if you have the answer right now, write down maybe, okay, I want to do that. I don't have the clients. Maybe I need some money right now. Maybe I need to shift something. So what is your current situation? Then the step number two is, what are my challenges? Why I am feeling maybe stuck right now? Maybe you believe you don't have the capabilities, or you don't have the knowledge, you don't know how. Maybe you don't have enough money to do those kind of things who will solve the problem. What are your current challenges? Step number three. What are your options right now? For me at the time, I knew I had two obvious options. Leave my apartment and figure out where I will live for a cheaper price, or going back and find a job. actually any kind of job. I could have go to a coffee and work in the coffee shop. So I had two obvious options. I could have also 10 options if I would look. But what are your current options? And if you only see one option and you can't imagine another option, how can you find a second option? Because you have options. You need to remember this. We always have choices. Sometimes we are not aware about how I am going to find another choice, but they exist. Maybe you need to reach out someone who is more expert in this area, or maybe you need a mentor, a coach, whatever, to help you to unlock a new world of possibilities. But remember, there are options. You just may not be aware about it. So step number
4.
4, thank you. Decide that you are going to decide today, or at the moment you decide about it, and not to change about it. You need to decide, you are deciding today, because if you take a decision but half decision, and then you are not fully convinced about your decision, that you will have a conversation with someone like a friend tomorrow, and then you will let maybe your friend questioning your decision, and then you will change your decision and go back to plan A or B. So you need to decide about your decision. You need to be sure about your decision. And me, when I took my decision, I sent the next day a notice to leave my apartment to the guy. I didn't, yeah, it was, my decision was taken. Didn't know yet how I am going to figure out the rest, but my decision was taken. So you need to be certain about that. Step number 5, so you are facing the decision, you haven't taken it yet. Project yourself in those 2 options, for example. See how could be your life in the coming weeks if you do these things. If you do option A, I could see myself going back to work and not willing to be there. Or option B, seeing myself, okay, maybe living out of a suitcase and changing houses time to time. It's like, this it was more what I was willing. So project yourself in those 2 options and try to imagine what could be your life, how you would feel, and which one is more aligned with what you would love right now. So this is bringing me to number 6. What do you want? What would you love? Not listening to your fears about is impossible. Maybe I will, I had the thought about maybe I will end up living in the street. I was like, no, that's not going to happen. In the worst case, I'm going to the hostel and find a new apartment or whatever, or ring a friend and find. But you need to know when you decide, is this coming from a place of love and expansion or from a place of fear? Because at the time, if I had listened to my fears, of course, I would be working in a job. I think even my sister told me, oh, you could just take a day job, like a coffee shop. And she's right. I could have chosen that options. I just didn't want it. So the next step is pick one. It's time to decide.
What's the 7 one?
What would you love?
Yes, that's the 6th.
Okay.
And the 7
Okay, so 7 is pick one of those options. Decide. It's a moment where you decide. And you tell yourself, I am doing that. And then the last one, you close the book and you move forward in your life. Because the secret of making a decision is you choose something today who's aligned with who you are right now, what you want, and then you start living your life again, creating movement. And then a few weeks from now, you may be facing another situation where you need to take another decision, and you build a new decision, you choose a new option, and you move forward. And this is life. We are taking thousands of decisions every single day. Should I wear this? Should I brush my teeth? No, brush your teeth, you just do it most of the time.
Less is
Drink
better.
water, all those things. So face when a decision is hard to take is the one you need the process, is the one you need to choose, because waiting is not going to solve it. But if you pick one, there is no, is what I want to say to you today, is there is no good or bad decision. There's only one decision from moving forward. Because you can choose today, I choose to leave my apartment. Doesn't mean like tomorrow, if I'm facing another financial crisis, or if I'm not going to choose maybe going for a job. It's not because a year ago I decided not to go to a job that tomorrow I cannot go to a job. If I want tomorrow, I'm going to go to a job. So you evolve and life goes on, and then you take new decisions. But the one you took right now on this particular point, it's solid. You act on it and you move forward, and you start creating this nice movement in your life.